When the Toronto Maple Leafs got eliminated in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs last year, Bryan Hayes, who now joins us in studio, the host of TSN Overdrive on TSN 1050, said, and I quote, "They've proven they can't win a cup with these guys." Hazer, Brad Treliving has taken over for Kyle Dubas, who moved on, but he re-signed, extended his head coach. Most of the talent up front is still the same. His number one goalie is still the same. Has Brad Treliving done enough to make you think these guys now can win a cup?
No, he hasn't. But I don't think it was ever necessarily on Brad Treliving to prove that. It's on the players to actually prove that they can do that. The core pieces of Matthews, Marner, Tavares, Nylander, Morgan, Riley, and I think...
But Brad Treliving has the option to come in and say, enough of these core pieces. I need to move one of these core pieces to bolster.
I'm not sure he does. I think Brendan Shanahan is the guy who's been here the whole time, and I think Shanahan made it pretty clear that we're going to go back to the well with these guys. I think at some point that will be the case. Yeah, Treliving, you're right, had the option. First thing he did, effectively, was sign Austin Matthews. It sounds as if he's fully intent on signing William Nylander, and he gave an extension to Sheldon Keefe. Now, Keefe is different, as you know, Geno. If they have a tough start, Keefe does not guarantee any security long-term. But to answer your question, no, it's still the same core. It's the same four defense. It's the same starting goaltender. It's the same coach. They've won one playoff round. So until they do more than that and build out, and I think improve the defense, which is something Treliving is responsible for, I'm not going to be changing my opinion on that.
Which then begs the question, why is Shanahan so protective of the body, the core that he has right now? Is it because he really believes ultimately they're going to win, or is it because he thinks the fan base wouldn't accept losing short-term to win long-term? And by that, I mean potentially dealing away a Nylander for some help on defense, maybe being potentially bolster their goaltending.
I don't think it's the second one at all. I think the fan base has been very loud about their discontent.
But they keep coming out despite the fact this team can't do anything in the postseason.
They show up all the time. It's the
so
hockey
then why
mecca.
do anything?
Well, that's the point. I think it's very seductive to be a playoff team every year, and this team is a playoff team, Geno. They are going to go to the playoffs. They are an elite regular season team. That is very seductive.
Which is obviously the goal, right? Just make the playoffs. It doesn't matter what you do in the playoffs.
I would say, unless they decide to finally move off someone significant, what they are telling the Leaf fan base is, we're going to go there, we're going to punch a ticket, and we're going to hope things break our way. He has put all of his eggs, Brendan Shanahan I'm talking about here, and eventually Brad Treliving will likely take this on as well. He's still relatively new in town. His eggs are in the basket of Matthews and Marner in particular. Those are the two core pieces. Those are the guys that they bottomed out to get. And they have invested in them. They've been here for 7 years. They are going to continue to invest in them in the future. And he's banking on them finally showing up in the playoffs and dragging this team to a cup final. And as for the fans, again, this is a massive fan base. You know that, Geno. Yep. And to suggest that you could paint them all with the same brush is not fair and not accurate. There are eternal optimists. There are eternal pessimists. There is apathy somewhere in the middle. These are all things that I think Shanahan has to consider, but he's decided that going to the playoffs is going to keep those the tickets being sold, jerseys being sold, young fans looking up to star players, and they're going to roll the dice that things change in the playoffs.
As somebody who follows this team and has really since birth very closely, Leaf fans now are probably saying, okay, so what would you do? What would you do if you were to really rattle things up? The possibility of moving a Willie Nylander is going to bring you back a lot. Goaltending is out there available. Connor Hellebuyck now going to the final year of his contract. He has said very clearly, I know I'm running out of time. I want to go somewhere I can win. Seems like a potential good fit if you're willing to give up some assets. Is that a big, bold move that you'd be willing to see this organization make?
I don't think that is the move. I think because what's going to come with Hellebuyck is a long-term investment. Like, if you're going to bring in Hellebuyck, it's not just
this organization has made a lot of long-term investments speculating.
Yes, they have.
And then they fall short.
They have. And listen, you look at what Florida did last year. Sergei Bobrovsky dragged them to a cup final. Dragged them there. They're paying him a lot of money to do it. It was not the soundest of investment prior to him finally waking up, but eventually it fell short. I don't think the philosophy is to put all your eggs into the basket of the goaltender and hope that he can drag them there. Samsonov statistically had a very good year during the regular season. In the playoffs, the stats were bloated. He was lucky because the guy on the other side, Tampa, did not play very well either. But no, I don't think you're looking at something that drastic.
So what do you want to see them do then? What do you want to see them do then?
At this point, I think you're going to go into the season with this core, right? Like, that's coming. It's going to be Matthews, Marner, Tavares, Nylander. I think they need to improve their defense substantially. I think they need to get bigger. I think there's 100 years of history in the NHL. Big, sturdy defense that can move the puck. That's how you win in the playoffs, Dubas was not willing to commit to it. We'll see if Treliving will.
Leaf fans are saying, sure, let's go out and bolster the defense. But you're right up against the cap. What are you willing to give up in order? You've got to give up a good asset in order to bring in a good defenseman. So
I understand that, but it's a difficult practice for us to have here without knowing what is on the other side of it, right? Like I can sit here and tell you,
but
I'd
I'm
trade
asking
Mitch
you
Marner.
what you would be willing to give up.
I'd be willing to trade all of them except for Austin Matthews.
No untouchable other than
Austin Matthews is untouchable. Everyone else, from my standpoint, would be on the table. But again, I have to qualify that. That depends on what is on the other side. I'm not saying being reckless. I'm not saying that Brad Treliving needs to do this to prove a point or needs to do it because it's the only thing that can possibly work here. If there is a deal on the table that is going to bolster the defense, the depth, and put them in a better position to have playoff success, I think it's imperative they do that. I'm not holding my breath. I don't think it's going to happen between now and opening night. But yes, I think there's very few untouchable players in the NHL. I think you'd agree with that, Geno. Like, how many guys are you talking about where you wouldn't say the same thing? That guy would be on the table if someone else is available. There's always someone better outside of 97 in Edmonton. That's the truth.
It's true. You got to be bold if you want people to stop talking about 1967.